Victoria Thompson stood at her easel, brush poised over canvas, as the setting sun painted Maplewood's sky in hues of orange and pink. The maple trees outside her studio window swayed gently in the evening breeze, their leaves whispering, secrets only nature understood. She dabbed a spot of crimson on the canvas, adding depth to the autumn scene she was creating. A glance at her watch told her it was time to check on Jack. Her husband of 8 years was in Seattle on another of his frequent business trips. Victoria set down her palette and wiped her hands on her paint-stained apron before reaching for her phone. The dial tone hummed in her ear as she waited, anticipating Jack's voice, tired but warm. Instead, what she heard sent a chill down her spine. A woman's laughter, light and carefree, filled the line. Victoria's fingers tightened around the phone, her knuckles turning white. The laughter was followed by Jack's voice, low and intimate, a tone she hadn't heard from him in years. "Jack!" Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. Silence fell abruptly, followed by a rustle of movement. "Victoria!" "Hey, what's up?" Jack's tone shifted, becoming casual, almost forced. Victoria's mind raced, her thoughts a jumbled mess. "Who was that?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Oh, just a colleague," Jack replied quickly. "We were discussing a project. You know how these business trips can be." Victoria's free hand clenched into a fist, her nails digging into her palm. "Jack, I heard her laughing," she said, her voice gaining strength. "Who is she?" Jack sighed, a sound Victoria recognized as his way of buying time. "Victoria, it's not what you think. I'll explain when I get back. Trust me, okay? Trust." The word echoed in Victoria's mind as she ended the call, her hand trembling. Trust had been the cornerstone of their marriage, but now it felt like sand slipping through her fingers. She looked at her painting, the vibrant autumn scene now seeming to mock her. With a sudden, violent motion, she swiped her arm across the easel mile, sending the canvas crashing to the floor. The days that followed were a haze of confusion and pain. Victoria found herself questioning every aspect of her marriage, every moment she had shared with Jack. The sound of that woman's laughter haunted her, playing on repeat in her mind like a broken record. Her studio, once a sanctuary of creativity, now felt suffocating. The canvases lining the walls seemed to stare at her accusingly, their cheerful scenes a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. Victoria tried to paint, but her brushstrokes were angry and chaotic, resulting in dark, turbulent pieces that reflected her inner storm. One afternoon, as rain pelted against the windows, Victoria found herself drawn to the attic. She climbed the creaking stairs, dust motes dancing in the dim light. In a corner, she found a box of old photos and letters, mementos of her life with Jack. With trembling hands, she opened an album. There they were, younger and carefree, on their honeymoon in Banff. Jack's arm was around her waist, his smile wide and genuine. Victoria traced his face with her finger, wondering where that man had gone. As she flipped through the pages, a piece of paper fluttered to the floor. It was a love note Jack had written her years ago. "To my Vicky," it read, "my muse, my heart, my everything." Victoria's vision blurred with tears as she read the words. So at odds with the man who had lied to her on the phone, determined to uncover the truth, Victoria began to investigate. She combed through Jack's emails, his text messages, even his credit card statements. What she found made her stomach churn. There were messages from a woman named Lisa, filled with flirtatious banter and thinly veiled innuendos. Hotel charges in cities where Jack claimed to be alone on business. Receipts for jewelry Victoria had never seen. Each discovery was like a dagger to her heart, twisting deeper with every lie uncovered. Victoria's world, once so secure, was crumbling around her. When Jack finally returned home, the confrontation was explosive. Victoria, armed with evidence, demanded answers. Jack's eyes, once so warm and loving, now darted around the room, avoiding her gaze. "It's not what you think," he stammered, his hands raised in defense. Victoria's laugh was bitter. "Then what is it, Jack? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me for months, maybe years." Jack's denials grew weaker as Victoria presented her findings. His shoulders slumped, defeat written across his face. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered, but the damage was done. As Victoria looked at the man she had loved for so long, she realized that the Jack she knew was gone. In his place stood a stranger, one who had shattered the trust that had been the foundation of their life together. Victoria's world had been turned upside down, but she was determined to uncover the full extent of Jack's betrayal. She spent sleepless nights poring over every scrap of information she could find, piecing together the puzzle of her husband's infidelity. Lisa, the other woman, was more than just a colleague. She was a rising star in Jack's company, a charismatic marketing executive with a talent for closing deals. Victoria found herself staring at Lisa's LinkedIn profile photo, studying the woman's confident smile and perfectly styled hair. She was everything Victoria wasn't: polished, corporate, ambitious. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Victoria made a decision that would change everything. With trembling fingers, she dialed Lisa's number, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the ringtone. "Hello?" Lisa's voice was warm and professional. Victoria's throat tightened. "This is Victoria Thompson, Jack's wife." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, a soft exhale. "I've been expecting this call," Lisa said, her voice tinged with resignation. "I need to know the truth," Victoria said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "All of it." What followed was a conversation that stripped away the last vestiges of Victoria's illusions. Lisa, to her credit, was honest and direct. The affair had been going on for over a year, starting as a flirtation at a company retreat and escalating quickly. Jack had told Lisa that his marriage was essentially over, that he and Victoria were staying together only for appearances. "I'm so sorry, Victoria," Lisa said, her voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I thought he was being honest with me." Victoria ended the call feeling numb. She wandered through the house, touching familiar objects that now seemed to belong to another life. In the kitchen, she found herself staring at a photo on the fridge, her and Jack on their last anniversary, their smiles frozen in time. With a sudden, violent motion, she ripped the photo down, crumpling it in her fist. As she sank to the kitchen floor, sobs racking her body, Victoria realized that her pain was mixed with something else, a growing anger, a determination to not let Jack's betrayal define her. The weeks that followed were a blur of grief and rage. Victoria moved through her days like a ghost, going through the motions of her life without really living it. The house, once warm and inviting, now felt like a mausoleum, filled with memories that haunted her at every turn. Her art suffered the most. Victoria would spend hours in her studio, staring at blank canvases, unable to summon the creativity that had once flowed so freely. When she did manage to paint, her work was dark and chaotic, a far cry from the vibrant landscapes she was known for. One particularly difficult night, Victoria found herself standing in front of a canvas, brush in hand, tears streaming down her face. With angry, violent strokes, she painted her pain, a maelstrom of dark colors, jagged lines cutting through the canvas like wounds. When she finally stepped back, exhausted, she saw her heartbreak laid bare before her. Sleep became elusive. Victoria would lie awake for hours, her mind replaying every moment of her marriage, searching for signs she might have missed. When she did manage to drift off, her dreams were filled with distorted images of Jack and Lisa, their laughter echoing in her subconscious. Her appetite waned, food tasting like ash in her mouth. Victoria's clothes began to hang loose on her frame, her face gaunt and pale. Friends and family reached out, their concern evident in hushed phone calls and gentle text messages. But Victoria found herself retreating further into isolation. One rainy afternoon, as Victoria sat at her kitchen table, listlessly pushing food around her plate, her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "We need to talk," it read. "I'm coming over." Victoria's heart raced, a mix of dread and anger coursing through her veins. She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor, and walked to the living room window. Outside, the rain fell in sheets, mirroring the storm of emotions inside her. As she waited for Jack to arrive, Victoria made a decision. She would face him, hear what he had to say, but she would not let him see her broken. She straightened her shoulders, took a deep breath, and prepared herself for the confrontation that would change the course of her life. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her stomach clench. Victoria watched as Jack got out, hunching against the rain. For a moment, she saw him as a stranger, this man who had shared her bed, her dreams, her life, now irreparably changed in her eyes. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime a stark contrast to the tension filling the house. Victoria took one last deep breath, steeling herself for whatever was to come. With steady steps, she walked to the door, ready to face the man who had shattered her world. Victoria opened the door, her face a mask of composure. Jack stood there, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes red-rimmed and weary. They stared at each other for a long moment, the air between them thick with unspoken words. "Can I come in?" Jack asked, his voice barely audible above the rain. Victoria stepped aside wordlessly, allowing him to enter. They moved to the living room, the space that once held so many happy memories now feeling alien and cold. "Victoria, Jack began. But she cut him off with a raised hand. "I don't want your apologies, Jack," she said, her voice steady. "I want the truth. All of it." Jack sank into an armchair, his shoulders slumped. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter a word, a sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Frowning, Victoria moved to answer it. On the doorstep stood a woman, her dark hair plastered to her face by the rain, a young boy clinging to her hand. The woman's eyes were wide with a mix of desperation and determination. "Are you Victoria?" she asked, her voice trembling. Victoria nodded, a sense of unease washing over her. "Yes, I am. And you are?" The woman swallowed hard. "I'm Megan, and this," she said, looking down at the boy, "is Noah. Jack is his father." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Victoria gripped the doorframe for support, her mind reeling. She turned to look at Jack, who had appeared behind her, his face ashen. "Megan, what are you doing here?" Jack's voice was a hoarse whisper. "I had nowhere else to go," Megan replied, her eyes filling with tears. "You stopped answering my calls, and Noah needs—" "Come in," Victoria interrupted, surprising herself. "You're soaked, both of you. Come in." As Megan and Noah stepped into the warmth of the house, Victoria felt a strange calm settle over her. The situation was surreal, but somehow, having Megan here felt right. It was as if the final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. In the living room, the truth spilled out in stuttered sentences and choked sobs. Jack had met Megan. Years ago, their relationship a tangle of promises and secrets. Noah was the result, a little boy with Jack's eyes and Megan's gentle smile. Victoria listened, her heart aching not just for herself, but for Megan and Noah. She saw in Megan's eyes the same pain, the same betrayal she had been grappling with. And in Noah, she saw an innocent caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes. As Jack fumbled through explanations and excuses, Victoria made a decision. She turned to Megan, who sat on the couch, Noah curled against her side. "You can stay here," Victoria said softly. "Both of you, until we figure this out." Megan's eyes widened in surprise. "But why would you help us?" Victoria smiled sadly. "Because we've both been lied to. And because that little boy deserves better than all of this." As the rain continued to fall outside, an unlikely alliance was formed in that living room. Victoria, Megan, and Noah, bound together by Jack's betrayal, but united in their determination to move forward. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. Victoria cleared out the guest room for Megan and Noah, the act of changing sheets and arranging furniture giving her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in weeks. Megan was hesitant at first, her eyes constantly darting between Victoria and Jack, as if expecting the fragile piece to shatter at any moment. But as the days passed, a tentative friendship began to form between the two women. They would sit in the kitchen late at night, after Noah had gone to bed, sharing cups of tea and pieces of their lives. Megan spoke of her dreams of becoming a teacher I'd put on hold when she became pregnant. Victoria found herself opening up about her art, her fears, her shattered trust. I never thought I'd find someone who understood, Megan said one night, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug. Someone who knew what it was like to be betrayed, Victoria finished for her. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with shared pain. Noah, oblivious to the complexities of the adult world, brought a lightness to the house that had been missing for too long. His laughter echoed through the rooms, his innocent questions and observations often catching the adults off guard. One afternoon, Victoria found Noah in her studio, his small hands covered in paint as he gleefully smeared colors across a canvas. "Look, Vicky," he exclaimed, using the nickname he'd given her. "I'm making art like you." Victoria felt something shift inside her as she looked at the joyful mess on the canvas. For the first time in months, she felt the stirring of creativity, the urge to pick up a brush and let her emotions flow onto the canvas. That night, after Noah was asleep, Victoria stood in front of a blank canvas. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up a brush, but as she began to paint, she felt a sense of release. The painting that emerged was different from anything she'd done before. A swirl of dark and light, pain and hope intertwined. Jack, meanwhile, became an increasingly distant figure. He would visit, his interactions with Noah awkward and strained. His attempts to speak with Victoria or Megan met with cool politeness. One evening, as Victoria watched Jack drive away after another tense visit, Megan came to stand beside her at the window. "What happens now?" Megan asked softly. Victoria turned to look at her, seeing the fear and uncertainty in the younger woman's eyes. She reached out and took Megan's hand, squeezing it gently. "We fight," Victoria said, her voice steady and determined. "We fight for Noah, for ourselves, for the truth. We don't let Jack's actions define us anymore." As they stood there, hand in hand, Victoria felt a surge of strength. The road ahead would be difficult, but she was no longer alone. In Megan and Noah, she had found an unexpected family, a reason to keep moving forward. The sound of Noah calling from upstairs broke the moment. As they turned to go to him, Victoria caught sight of her reflection in the window. For the first time in months, she saw a glimmer of hope in her own eyes. Victoria woke early the next morning, the first rays of sunlight filtering through her curtains. She lay in bed for a moment, listening to the quiet sounds of the house, Megan's soft footsteps in the hallway, Noah's muffled giggles. With a deep breath, she sat up, determination settling over her like armor. Her first call was to Alex, her childhood friend turned successful lawyer. His voice, warm and familiar, brought a small smile to her face. "Victoria, it's been too long. How are you holding up?" She hesitated, then let out a shaky laugh. "It's complicated, Alex. I need your help. I'm filing for divorce." There was a pause, then a soft sigh. "I'm so sorry, Victoria. But I'm here for you. Whatever you need." Over the next few weeks, Victoria and Alex worked tirelessly, building a case against Jack. They pored over financial records, emails, and text messages, each piece of evidence a painful reminder of Jack's betrayal. Victoria found herself reliving every lie, every moment of deception, but she pressed on, her resolve unwavering. Megan proved to be an unexpected ally in their efforts. She provided crucial information about Jack's secret life, filling in gaps that Victoria hadn't even known existed. The two women spent long hours at the kitchen table, piecing together the puzzle of Jack's deceptions. Noah, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him, became a source of joy and distraction. Victoria found herself looking forward to their impromptu art sessions, the little boy's enthusiasm rekindling her own passion for painting. One afternoon, as Victoria and Alex sat surrounded by legal documents, there was a knock at the door. Victoria opened it to find a stern-faced man in a suit. "Victoria Thompson?" he asked. She nodded, a knot forming in her stomach. "You've been served," he said, handing her an envelope before turning and walking away. With trembling hands, Victoria opened the envelope. Inside was a custody petition from Jack, demanding full custody of Noah. The paper crumpled in her fist as anger surged through her. "We fight," she said, turning to Alex, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "We fight for Noah, for Megan, for the truth." Alex nodded, his expression resolute. "We fight, Victoria, and we win." The courthouse loomed. Before them, its stone facade imposing in the early morning light. Victoria took a deep breath, smoothing down her suit jacket with trembling hands. Beside her, Megan stood pale but determined, Noah's small hand clasped tightly in hers. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table, Alex at her side, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Across the aisle, Jack sat with his lawyer, his face a mask of confidence that didn't quite reach his eyes. As the trial began, Victoria found herself in a whirlwind of legal jargon and emotional testimony. Alex presented their case with precision, laying out evidence of Jack's infidelity, his lies, his neglect of Noah. Each piece of evidence felt like a blow, stripping away the last vestiges of the life Victoria had thought she knew. Megan took the stand, her voice shaking at first but growing stronger as she spoke. She recounted Jack's promises, his gradual withdrawal, his abandonment of Noah. Victoria watched as Megan's eyes filled with tears, her heart aching for the younger woman's pain. "I just want what's best for Noah," Megan said, her gaze fixed on the judge. "He deserves stability, love, honesty. He deserves better than broken promises." Jack's lawyer cross-examined Megan aggressively, his questions sharp and accusatory, but Megan held her ground, her responses clear and heartfelt. Victoria felt a surge of pride and admiration for her strength. Then it was Victoria's turn. As she took the stand, she caught sight of Jack's face, a mixture of anger and something that looked almost like regret. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "Your Honor, I loved Jack," she said, her voice steady. "I loved him with all my heart. But he betrayed not just me, but Megan and Noah as well. He lied. He manipulated. He hurt innocent people. And now, he's trying to take away the one thing that matters most to Megan, her son." Victoria looked directly at Jack, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. "I won't let that happen. I won't let him hurt anyone else. I won't let him win." As the trial wore on, there were moments of hope and moments of despair. Victoria found herself riding an emotional roller coaster, clinging to her determination, even as doubt tried to creep in. One day, as they stepped out of the courtroom for a recess, Victoria spotted a familiar face in the hallway, Lisa, the other woman. For a moment, their eyes met, a world of unspoken words passing between them. Lisa approached hesitantly. "Victoria, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I want to make things right." Victoria looked at Lisa, seeing in her eyes a reflection of her own pain and regret. She reached out, taking Lisa's hand in a gesture that surprised them both. "We'll make things right," Victoria said, her voice filled with quiet determination. "All of us, together." As they stood there, an unlikely group united by shared pain and a common goal, Victoria felt a glimmer of hope. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, she truly believed they could win. The final day of the trial arrived, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Victoria sat rigidly at the plaintiff's table, her fingers intertwined, with Megan's under the table. Alex, calm and collected beside them, gave Victoria's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. As the judge entered, the courtroom fell into a hushed silence. Victoria's eyes darted to Jack, who sat across the aisle, his face a mask of practiced nonchalance. But she could see the tension in his jaw, the slight tremor in his hands. "This has been a complex and emotionally charged case." "The judge," began I, his voice resonating through the room. "We've heard testimonies of betrayal, deceit, and neglect, but we've also heard stories of resilience, unexpected alliances, and, above all, the unwavering love for a child." Victoria held her breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. "After careful consideration of all evidence presented, I have reached a decision," the judge continued. "Jack Thompson is hereby ordered to pay child support to Megan Davis for their son, Noah. He will have supervised visitation rights, with the possibility of unsupervised visits contingent, upon his completion of a court-mandated parenting program and regular counseling sessions. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Victoria felt Megan's hand tighten around hers, heard her sharp intake of breath. The judge turned his gaze to Victoria. "Miss Thompson, your actions throughout these proceedings have been commendable. You've shown remarkable strength and compassion, fighting not just for yourself, but for others who have been wronged. The court recognizes your role in providing stability and support for Noah during this difficult time." Victoria felt tears prick at her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her. They had done it. They had fought for the truth, for justice, and they had won. As they left the courtroom, Victoria caught sight of Jack. For a moment, their eyes met. In his gaze, she saw a mixture of anger, regret, and something that looked almost like respect. Then he turned away, disappearing into the crowd. Outside, the sun was shining, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill of the courtroom. Victoria looked at Megan, saw the tears of relief streaming down her face, and pulled her into a tight hug. Noah, sensing the shift in mood, wrapped his arms around both their legs, his small face beaming up at them. "We did it," Megan whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Victoria nodded, her own tears falling freely now. "We did. Together." As they stood there, basking in the sunlight and their hard-won victory, Victoria felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The battle was over, and a new chapter of her life was about to begin. In the weeks that followed the trial, Victoria found herself embracing a newfound sense of freedom and hope. The weight of betrayal and uncertainty that had been crushing her for so long began to lift, replaced by a quiet determination to rebuild her life. Her art, which had been a reflection of her pain and anger, began to evolve. Victoria spent hours in her studio, the canvas once again becoming a source of joy rather than an outlet for grief. Her paintings, while still intense and emotionally charged, now held hints of light and hope amidst the darker hues. One afternoon, as Victoria was putting the finishing touches on a new piece, she heard a soft knock at the studio door. It was Alex, his presence a comfort she had come to rely on more and more. "How's it going?" he asked, his eyes taking in the vibrant canvas before him. Victoria stepped back, tilting her head as she considered her work. "It's healing," she said softly. "I'm healing." Alex moved closer, his hand finding hers. "You're amazing, you know that?" he said, his voice filled with admiration. "After everything you've been through, you're still creating beauty." Victoria turned to him, seeing in his eyes the love and support that had been her anchor through the storm. Without a word, she leaned in and kissed him, a gesture that felt both surprising and completely natural. As they broke apart, both slightly breathless, Alex smiled. "I've been wanting to do that for a long time," he admitted. Victoria laughed, a sound of pure joy that echoed through the studio. "Me too," she confessed. Their relationship deepened in the days that followed, a love born of friendship, respect, and shared experiences. Alex became a constant presence in the house, his laughter mingling with Noah's, his steady presence a comfort to both Victoria and Megan. Megan and Noah had become a permanent fixture in Victoria's life. They moved into a nearby apartment, close enough for daily visits and impromptu dinners. Victoria watched with pride as Megan enrolled in online classes, taking the first steps towards her dream of becoming a teacher. Noah, now a regular at Victoria's impromptu art lessons, was flourishing. His laughter filled the house, his artwork proudly displayed alongside Victoria's on the fridge. She saw in him a future filled with love and possibility, a reminder of the innocence and hope that had once seemed lost. One evening, as Victoria, Alex, Megan, and Noah sat around the dinner table, their conversation and laughter flowing freely, Victoria felt a sense of contentment wash over her. This was her family now, unconventional and unexpected, but bound together by love, trust, and shared experiences. Later that night, as Victoria stood on her back porch, looking up at the star-filled sky, Alex joined her. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Happy?" he asked softly. Victoria leaned back into his embrace, a smile playing on her lips. "Yes," she said, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. "I'm happy." As they stood there, under the vast canopy of stars, Victoria felt a profound sense of peace and gratitude. She had weathered the storm, faced her fears, and come out stronger. With Alex by her side, Megan and Noah in her life, and her passion for art rekindled, Victoria knew that the best was yet to come. The journey had been painful, the road difficult, but standing there in that moment, Victoria Thompson was exactly where she was meant to be. Her heart was full, her spirit unbroken, and her future bright with promise. The art gallery buzzed with excitement, the walls adorned with Victoria's latest collection. Each painting told a story of transformation, from darkness to light, from pain to healing. Visitors moved from piece to piece, their hushed conversations punctuated by occasional gasps of admiration. Victoria stood in the center of it all, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. She wore a deep blue dress that complemented the dominant colors in her paintings, her hair swept up in an elegant knot. As she surveyed the room, she caught sight of familiar faces that made her smile. Megan was there, looking radiant in a simple black dress, her eyes shining with pride for her friend. She was deep in conversation with one of the gallery patrons, her newfound confidence evident in her posture and animated gestures. Victoria knew that Megan had recently completed her teaching degree and was set to start her first job at a local elementary school in the fall. Noah, now a year older and inches taller, darted between the guests, his energy infectious. He stopped in front of one of Victoria's paintings, a swirl of vibrant colors that seemed to dance off the canvas. "I helped with that one," he proclaimed proudly to anyone who would listen, pointing to a small section where Victoria had incorporated his brushstrokes into the piece. Alex made his way through the crowd, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. He handed one to Victoria, placing a soft kiss on her cheek. "You've outdone yourself," he murmured, his eyes reflecting the love and admiration he felt for her. As Victoria looked around the room, she felt a sense of wonder at how much had changed in just 1 year. The pain of betrayal had transformed into strength, the bitterness into growth. Her art, once a reflection of her turmoil, now spoke of resilience and hope. A hush fell over the crowd as the gallery owner stepped forward to make a speech. He spoke of Victoria's journey, of the raw emotion captured in her work, and of the inspiring story behind the collection. As he finished, he raised his glass in a toast. "To Victoria Thompson," he said, "an artist who turned pain into beauty and betrayal into triumph." The room echoed with the sound of clinking glasses and applause. Victoria felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. She looked at Alex, saw the pride shining in his eyes, and knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together. As the evening wound down, Victoria found a quiet moment alone in front of her favorite piece. A large canvas that depicted a storm-tossed sea giving way to calm waters and a rising sun. It was a metaphor for her own journey, a visual representation of the storms she had weathered and the peace she had found. Megan joined her, slipping an arm around Victoria's waist. "It's beautiful," she said softly, "just like the woman who painted it." Victoria turned to her friend, her heart full of emotion. "We did this together," she said. "All of us, you, me, Noah, Alex, we're family now." As they stood there, surrounded by the tangible results of Victoria's healing and growth, both women felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had faced betrayal and come out stronger, forging an unlikely bond that had become the foundation of a new kind of family. The gallery slowly emptied, but Victoria lingered, savoring the moment. As she finally prepared to leave, Alex, by her side, and Noah's small hand in hers, she took one last look around. This wasn't just an art show, it was a celebration of resilience, of love found in unexpected places, and of the beautiful possibilities that can arise from even the darkest of times. Victoria stepped out into the cool night air, her heart light and her spirit soaring. The future stretched out before her, full of promise and potential. She was ready for whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that she had the strength to face any challenge and the love of her chosen family to support her along the way. As they drove home, the city lights twinkling around them, Victoria smiled to herself. This was her happy ending, but more importantly, it was her new beginning. What did you think of the story? Leave a comment and rate this story from 0 to 10. What rating would you give it and why? 2 buttons will appear next to it. One to subscribe, if you haven't already, and the other to watch other interesting stories. Choose one. Thanks for watching this far. See you soon.